of people. They have their limits, but in some cases his work's not too bad.
All right, we'll keep going. It's only 24 chapters, so
And well, it's a great story, you know. It sort of concentrated on the guy they called the chicken head.
yeah. Any desire to go through it formally? Would that be of use to you?
Oh, uh, well, certainly
All right.
there was some enjoyable spots in it.
All right. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Philip K. Dick, Tony Parker adaptation.
Well, this is the only Dick story I've really read, and they're not the happiest of stories. Okay, turtles.
Generally speaking, no. No, they're not.
Well, I'm curious thing is how much this reflected post-war America. So this is sort of like 1950s America projected into the future. Natalia's meeting with a girlfriend.
Oh,
She's virtually finished her studies, so I'll be curious to see if she gets back into artwork again. You know, tries to make her own cartoon, comic or something like that. Well, I don't know. I look at this female figure. What do you think of this drawing, this female figure down the bottom?
you mean the art?
Yeah.
I, well, I don't know. It's all right. As the art goes, I guess. Sure. Got his moments.
Okay, story-wise, animal fandom, where pet ownership had turned into something sacred, or keeping up with the Joneses.
We're losing people. What were you expecting?
Oh well, some people are just looking to be entertained.
I have no expectations.
Okay, mood enhancement. So
Hmm.
this is sort of perhaps reflects the drug usage after World War II, the barbiturates craze and whatever else.
Hmm.
Okay, the electric sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a lot of chapters if we're doing all six.
Yeah, well, you said this is verbatim uh, from the book.
That was the idea that they're gonna every single one of these sentences that you see in the captions and in the lines of dialogue are, yep, every 100% of what Dick wrote is translated to these comics pages.
Well, this is a curious thing because a lot of science fiction authors create characters who are philosophers, but Dick deliberately creates more ordinary sort of people. Here's our John Isidore. Now, this is the interesting thing, how they changed John Isidore in the movie. In the movie, he's a person uh, with a disability, but he's a genius. But in the original book, he's virtually disability, but well, actually hasn't got a specific disability other than radiation poisoning, I guess. But he's not too bright. And I'm just noticing that this this is a sort of leftist chic you get, that they prize a highly educated character and look down upon anybody who doesn't have those educated credentials. I remember when I was hanging around with the Marxists when I was in my early 20s, that's the one thing I picked up, their sort of attitudes, that they really looked down on everybody else. And this quality is in a lot of science fiction works, very sort of lefty orientated, and it tends to be elitist. There's an elitist leftism, which they claim doesn't exist. But it's something certainly, what's George Orwell was the person who observed it. I'll say John Isidore's a nobody. He's a person who society sees as a virtual zero. And it's interesting that this is a sort of character that Dick sort of will illustrate. He doesn't illustrate always perfect intellectuals, which is a province of much in the way of science fiction story. Okay, Mercerism. So that's some sort of Christianity copy, which is of enormous importance to many people. And so the tragic story of Mercer. Okay, the ostrich. A real ostrich, the only one in America.
Yeah.
High price. This is sort of a curious element that I don't know what he's trying to reflect in this sort of pet fandom. But I suppose the 50s was a time when everybody was showing off their fancy new cars and stuff like that. Well, he got flying cars, except a lot of other technology hasn't caught up with 2019. And spaceships and colonizing other worlds. So I wonder if all these abandoned buildings actually reflect, again, the post-war period when people, because they had cars, moved out of the cities, and it left a lot of the internal buildings in cities abandoned. Okay, he's looking at his catalogue there, looking at the price of animals. Okay, the Void Camp test. Question is whether an android can slip through, but he demonstrates that he can when he checks out Rachel. Okay, Rachel's coming into it. Ah, raccoon. Yeah, this is nothing like what was in the movie copy where, you know, you got armed guards and stuff like that. Curious element, actually. Of course, armed guards weren't too common a thing in the past. Oh, well, you know, tries to bribe him with an owl. Well, she passes the test. It's written off as a schizo. And he does one more test and discovers swings from one side to the other. Well, putting a live lobster in the boiling water. Fun ways to cook things. The matador. Okay, selling the slaves. There's some doubt about, you know, this sort of image we're given of slaves in the old days being sold on public display. Claim is that there was usually the slaves were displayed in rooms. Just a slave was brought out at a time for sale. So it's sort of a big thing like you're selling livestock wasn't quite the same.
Did you read any of the backup essays in the back?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah.
Oh, good.
One more test,
Hmm.
and he picks up she's a replicant. Okay, John Isidore. This is a great scene, actually. Comes up, girl in the apartment, and John's trying to be friendly. I really like that picture. What do you reckon, Dave? Okay, I could help you unpack. He's got a tab of margarine as a gift. Now, this is Pris. This is a duplicate model to Rachel. It's interesting, of course, the cartoonist is putting a lot of effort into John Isidore.
Hmm.
The Invisible Man. Reminds me of what I was like in ancient Egypt. I was a bit like him. The interesting thing about John Isidore, even though he's an intellectual reject, low IQ, he actually does think. He just comes up with the wrong stuff. His knowledge is limited, but he does have a perspective which is rather unique. For example, he's actually kinder. Okay, what do you think of that face there of John Isidore? Not the world's greatest work.
No, no. There's a lot about this I think could have been done better.
A major objection to Mercerism. Okay, these are the people rejecting pseudo-Christianity. Maybe I could fix dinner for us. I brought home the ingredients. No, I have too much to do. The girl shook off his request effortlessly, and he noticed that, perceived it without understanding it. Now the initial fear had diminished, and he thought deplorable a coldness. There's not many FF stories that would create a character like this. You told me who you work for. Hmm. So John Isidore's a rather tragic sort of a figure, and his tragedy extends to cats as the story goes on. No, I never heard of them. I don't know anything about it. More of your chicken head imagination, I suppose. That's yeah. I'll have to check back that why she uses the Rosen name at first, then changes it back to Pris Stratton. Well, I'll be curious to see what Roy Batty looks like in this one. Okay, Kibble. The world's going to be taken over by Kibble.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is, yeah, this is sort of like the dilapidated dwellings of the inner city back in the 60s and the 70s. Uh, yeah, well, I lived, say, in Melbourne's inner city for a while and lived in a dilapidated building. It was very cheap though. Like I could afford to rent a house or share a house on the dole back in those days and hang around the exciting inner city of Melbourne. There he goes, clutching his, God, it's not the Jehovah's Witnesses, is it? I'll be back in a sec.
How you going, mate?
Hey, you guys are busy at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, we are busy.
The witnesses, eh?
Yeah, oh, you reckon?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much anyway. Have a good day.
You too, mate. No
Bye.
worries. Enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, I was right. They've been around a lot lately. I
Really.
better check up on which, if they've reissued another End of the World Prophecy. I usually get a few going before that. The
Yeah.
next one fizzles.
We don't get a lot around where I am, but I don't answer the front door here. So
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned, there's a few different types of Christian groups around, but from what I gather, the witnesses are one to avoid. I think I could even find the Seventh Day Adventists reasonable by comparison. Oh, there we go, Buster Friendly. It's a curious piece of work, really. Androids, or the book, certainly sticks out as one of the more interesting pieces of science fiction. Okay, the cat. Rightio, the sick cat. This is, a whole episode, a whole drama about a real cat that dies. And everyone's got a flying car. They didn't even have that in the movie, actually. It was only the powerful institutions and the very wealthy that had flying cars. I think Deckard himself, his own personal vehicle he was using, didn't fly in the movie. It's really great how they've made those cats even have visible illness. He keeps on looking for the controls. This is one of the funny things that this sort of savage working condition, which he illustrates so well. I'll have to check the novel again, actually. Yeah, I'm just wondering how did Dick understand the circumstances of an isolated character like John, because he did work a bit in his early days, but he must have pretty much spent his time writing in the end, very early in the piece. Mankind needs more empathy. I've never really understood the word empathy, actually. You know, I understand the word sympathy was the one I used to hear when I was a kid, but the word empathy became a new one on me. There is some sort of difference. This is a real cat, which is dead. So he's going to push Isidore to ring up the owner. So this becomes quite a dramatic scene.
I think that was
That's, yeah, as I said, I noticed that's,
4.
well, when I was a lefty, spent my time with Marxists, I tended to notice how much they looked upon those they thought beneath them. So they looked badly upon those that they thought were beneath them, while at the same time preaching equality.
Okay, here we go.
It's the interesting thing about Dick, that he can appreciate the humanity of somebody like John Isidore. What's his name? His boss. Is just one weird looking dude. I think it's a sort of full body picture of the boss, and The chicken head makes a call or he's fired. Calls up the wife. The tragedy of a pet animal dying. Okay, that's a great little image, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, the production line of Android cats. Oh, there we are. There's a long shot. So
Yeah.
So he got his boss. Oh no, you'd gotten to it before. Yeah, up ahead. So small guy, huge head, and he makes it worse with a afro sort of haircut and a huge beard. This guy's going out of his way to look weird. I don't know. John Isidore would have been perfectly at home on the in Kansas back in the 19th century, I reckon. In West Virginia, he would have been a genius. Well, I found this one of the more enjoyable experiences. It helps me comprehend the story a bit better. I'd only listened to it on audio a few months ago.
It's one of the great benefits of the comics medium. It does do that. Get a little bit of a visual. Yeah. You got to chapter 6, right?
Yeah, did all the comics. Yeah,
Okay.
all six.
If you wanted an extra one, you could have asked. I probably would have gotten it to you in time.
Well, certainly, yeah. When we do it again next time, so there'll be about another three to go to do the whole lot.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the Android as a garbage collector trying to live in a disguise.
And anyone who's listening, if you guys would like advance copies of these digital comics, just contact me. I'll see if I can get them to you.
Okay, this is an interesting one. The Russian agent or the Russian cop. This was a time when Russia was still pretty big on the world scene. This is why Putin's trying to make Russia great again. Audrey is making a request. Okay, well, Al's asked who was the illustrator and publisher of this graphic novel. Well, it was just the illustrator's work, basically. Okay. Tony Parker, mainly, since the dialogue was it was just Dick, basically. But wonder what sort of other stuff Tony Parker has done.
I can find out. But it was put out.
It was put out back around 2015.
Put out by Boom. I'd say contact me via Meetup Messenger since we're on Meetup.
Yeah, well, you can buy the hard copy on Amazon for about $500, it seems.
Yeah, the physical copies. I don't think anybody would need to do that. Okay, hold on, everyone, hold on for a sec, and I'll get this. I gotta do the go to my drive thing. You, of course, need a digital comics reader on your device. There are many of them out there. There we go. There it is. Okay, so here we go, guys. Share, copy link, done. All right, here we go. Incoming. Number 1. There you go. I think I just have to say copy link. That's all I have to do. Number 2. Okay. Now they do have compilations, but I've chosen to go with the individual chapters. Chapter 3. Copy link. Chapter 4. Just download each of these and you'll have them right there on your drive or whatever your device is that you're on right at the moment. If it's an inconvenient device, you can send it to yourself where you'd like to read it. Copy chapter 5. And finally, copying.
Yeah, I find CDS Playx the most
6.
sort of
There you go.
convenient to use.
So those are CBR files. You need a CBR reader, depending on what platform OS you're using, what your device is. There's many available. If you don't have one already, you should. If you're going to read comics digitally, then yeah, you need a digital comics reader. If you need any help there, let me know. I'll see what I can do. If you're new here, we're here every Friday night at this time to talk comics. Choose a comic in advance. come here and chat about it. Next week, we're doing more science fiction. Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury. Here, Fahrenheit 451. And there is putting this for Stephen, for the rest of you. We're going to talk about Fahrenheit 451 adaptation, comics adaptation next week. There it is for everyone. We're here every Friday night at this time. Choose a comic in advance. Come here and chat about it. The answer to that, Audrey, is it depends on what device you're using. Are you on a desktop? Are you on an iPad? Are you on a smartphone? What are you on? Then give me a little bit more details about what you're on, and I can answer you that question. Dell laptop, Windows machine? If it's a Windows machine, okay, cool. Gotcha now. For Windows, you're going to want a comic book reader. C Display X. There it is. C Display X. That would be the one you want. Download and install C Display X. If you're on Windows, that's the one you want right there. Download, install that. Also works for Android devices, but that's the best for a Windows machine. Yeah, C Display X, that's what you're going to want. Just download and install, and that'll let you read CBR digital files. CBR stands for comic book reader, I guess. I'm guessing, actually. I don't know. We're here every Friday night. I also have other... I think, Audrey, if you're a member of the meetup group, you've probably seen some of the other events happening on the calendar. And some of those are mine. A lot of them aren't. If you have any trouble, just contact me. I'll try to answer whatever difficulty you've got. Okay, wait a minute. I got one more thing to do here. Chivalry. Remember Chivalry, Stephen?
That was a particular comic. It does sort of ring a bell.
To use his name, the Neil Gaiman comic, and Colleen Doran.
He's been cancelled, hasn't he?
We did it a little bit. Well, we can talk about that a little bit later. Remember this? This one.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
You remember this. Okay, I just want you to answer one thing because I've forgotten. Remember this picture here in the book? Now this is
Okay, we were in the alternate meeting, weren't we?
this is the two of them, but I've forgotten what this is a reference to. Can you remind me what this is a reference to?
Famous philosopher and his muse, Abelard and Eloise.
That's the one, yeah.
And got a movie of it if you like.
What's the story between them, briefly?
Well, Abelard was so an academic of the time. So we're looking, like 12th century. Now, academics were expected to live like monks. They must have paid him some sort of a fee, I assume, so he probably had got a bit of money out of his job. But he was basically operating as a free person. He wasn't associated with any particular monastery, and he took up a job educating the daughter of some noble. She was fairly young at the time. I think he was in his mid-30s. She was something like about 18 or something like that. And he developed a relationship with her and she got pregnant. And the uncle wanted him to marry her. Now, this would have made, if he was married, this actually would have interfered with his career as a teacher at the time, because they were expected to be celibate like priests and monks. And he married her in secret and put her in confinement somewhere. But when he failed to marry her publicly, for some reason, the uncle sent a couple of hooligans around who castrated him. And so he ended up living in an order and she lived in an order. He wasn't much interested in talking to her. The great romance in the letters that were sent later were very much from on the part of Eloise. But Abelard, of course, is one of the very famous philosophers, European philosophers of the Middle Ages. You know, you'd be like in the top 10 names, if not the top 5. You'd probably have to put him in the top 5. Abelard was a nominalist, along with William of Ockham, and Abelard probably began the trend in nominalism in medieval philosophy, which was known as scholasticism.
Okay. And this little bit here, this illustration, is the two of them dressed as those two, Abelard and Eloise.
Yeah, well, how they ended up, Abelard in an order and her in a separate order.
Right. Yeah, reference to the two famous figures in history. Okay, cool. I'd forgotten the details. I just was talking to a friend the other day about this, and this came up. I wanted the specifics of it. So thanks.
Well, you can read their letters if you like.
Yeah. And for future meetings, I will say I do take requests. I take suggestions. If anybody here has any suggestions that good comics that you either know about or would like to know about.
Oh yeah. Snowpiercer. I've been reading that. That seems pretty good.
Which one?
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer.
Here.
Yeah, I know Snowpiercer. I'm
It's
familiar with it.
by a French
Yeah.
guy. What's his name?
They made a movie.
Yeah, Jacques Loeb. I think that's how you say it. Jacques Loeb and Jean-Marc Rochette.
That's right. Yeah.
There's since
It's a
six
possibility. Yeah, we might do that. Sure. All right, I'll take
Yeah.
suggestions. Okay.
6 volumes. I got them out. They're really nice. I think they're not. They're mostly black and white though. There's probably
Yeah.
other versions, I'm sure.
No, it's very well known. It's very popular. Yeah, it's gotten good regard.
I also another one you might want to consider is Brave New World. I saw that in graphic novel form. That was pretty awesome.
I think I might be able to find that. A lot of it depends on whether I can find it or not, but I'll look for that one. Sure. Okay.
And of course, 1984. That's
We did do
awesome.
that. We did that about 3 years ago. Remember, Stephen?
Oh,
We did that about 3.5 years ago. That was an
On
interesting meeting.
1984.
That was an interesting
Yeah.
meeting. We did the 1984 graphic novel adaptation, yeah. You know what? I don't mind doing stuff again. We've done From Hell twice. I don't mind doing stuff again.
That's right. I think I found the DVD of the movie. I'll have to watch that at some point.
Good to hear.
I just read Watchmen #8. Found it a little bit confusing because he was jumping between some different storylines. Yeah, he was getting back into that sailor that was drifting around on the raft and tying it back in. So a character which had appeared earlier in the line of comics. I assume that you've studied Watchmen quite deeply, David.
Well, I've read Watchmen, yeah.
I find it, yeah, I found #8 just getting a little bit confusing. Now, for example, reading androids, it's very clear in its layout. You know, you can't sort of mistake stuff in it. But more can be a little bit hard to follow at times.
Really. Hmm.
Trying to work through Watchmen and trying to figure all the complicated motives of the characters would require spending more time with the comic, I think. Yeah, I think I caught up with one of Rick's obsessions.
Yeah.
Caesar's Messiah. So this theory that the Flavians concocted Christianity, which is quite out there, if you ask me.
Yeah, I've never read those Dark Tower comic adaptations. I know of them. That would be an interesting choice. Be a very interesting choice. I don't think we've ever done any Stephen King here. Be very interesting. I think Peter David did those, right? Yeah, be interesting. All right, I'll Yeah, I'm glad you're enthusiastic, L. If you're gonna be a regular here, I'll definitely take suggestions.
Or Al gets on the Zoom existential groups in the Australia-based ones or Melbourne-based.
Yeah, I've seen you around, L. Yeah, our Monday afternoon group. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how you start with one meetup group and then before you know it, you're in like half a dozen of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
that's the way it works.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you come across stuff like well, what we do on the Monday afternoon group, of course, is we follow Kenneth Smith. But when you come across a writer, thinker, teacher like at the level of Kenneth Smith, then he gets priority. He's one of those writers where you just have to drop everything and put him at the top of the list and say, okay, I got to follow this guy because he's that good. He's that good. And that's rare. It's rare to come across, a writer who has that much wisdom than Smith, in my opinion. They're out there, but they're rare. Mm.
Oh, Caesar's Messiah. This is here. So Rick's finding this concept quite interesting.
Zoom updated, and now I can't.
Well, it was the idea that the Flavian dynasty created Christianity, which, I wouldn't believe at all, actually. It's amazing some of the ideas that Rick will take up without much discrimination. I mean, Caesar's Messiah is right up there with Alex Jones.
Of all things, Rick is very open to criticism. If you've got something you want to criticize him for, I think he's a very open guy. He'll listen to whatever you want to bring up.
Oh, well, yeah, I'll have to explore the issue a bit, but yeah, it's talking about the dolphin sigils and stuff like that. Of course, you know, supposedly Josephus claiming that the Jewish prophecy of Messiah was about Valerian. What was his name? Actually, come to think of it, I think there would have been no more perfect writer to do Donald Trump than Dick, I reckon. I mean, Donald Trump just has to be the most Dixonian sort of persona I can imagine.
Might be something to that, yeah. Yeah, what I usually do is I send the next week's selection here in the meeting for next week, for the week following, every time. But if you miss a week, then yeah, just contact me and I'll send along whatever we're doing at the moment. If anybody's on Facebook, add me on Facebook. It's a good one.
Oh, right. Yeah, that movie too, Creation of the Humanoids. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Well, this is the interesting thing. What was Dick's novel influenced by this B-grade film called Creation of the Humanoids? I did see it a few times when I was a kid, and of course, this whole idea of different series of androids which progressively become closer to human was a feature of the novel, or sorry, of the movie. Now, you can watch it on YouTube, actually. I'll get the YouTube. Now, this was something. I think it was Ridley Scott that did Blade Runner, who was well known for copying anything that looked good. It's funny that the people haven't brought attention to the similarities. Some called it a minor masterpiece, but you're talking about a very B-grade film that was, in some ways, in other ways, rather outstanding, and still looks very interesting today. Because there was I don't think space travel stuck out in the movie. It was a post-atomic world in which humanity was dying out, and they required robots to help them rebuild. And not liking working with robotic-looking creatures, they wanted more humanoid-looking creatures. So androids were created. The first android was a D20 model. They figured out a D100 model would be perfectly human, so anything above D80 was banned as being too human. And there was also a sort of a fascist type society called the Society of Flesh and Blood that was against androids and more or less persecuted androids. So there's elements there which, say the film copied the book, but looks like Scott looked at this old B-grade movie and copied some of the atmosphere out of it. I think it's a film well worth watching if you find the time, but it's a rather slow, very dialogue-heavy film with some interesting visual appearances. Probably a lot better. They got a lot better out of it than their budget would have allowed. But apparently, they had some good people working on it.
Liberty Mutual is all she talks about, since we saved hundreds by bundling our home and.
But the acting is generally rather wooden. It probably had something to do with the director.
Well, maybe we'll put it on the movie list.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting film if you're interested in the book Androids or Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner is like one of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah.
If this is the interesting thing, if you got familiar with the original work, Androids, you'd start to become a little bit critical of Blade Runner. I quite liked the movie. I remember I went to empty cinemas and it was like, it was only on for 2 weeks. I went with a friend and I thought it was a good film myself. But the critics were very, very negative on it. And at the time, they thought, well, this is just Humphrey Bogart in science fiction, which wasn't the first time it had been done, actually. I think there was a French film called Alphaville, which followed that theme. Then, I remember by about the year 2000, you're talking to some young saleswoman at a video boutique and she's a raving fan of the film. So it did appeal to a later generation very strongly. But yeah, well, still one of the outstanding films in science fiction. Be interesting if they ever made one which reflected the original story better. Okay. The existential society awaits. So that was a nice enough meeting. Glad to meet you all, and thanks very much, Dave.
Okay.
I'll probably see you on your Monday.
Right.
If the world hasn't ended.
Right. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Sure.
I'll see you over there in existentialist land. All right, bye.